Welcome back, GNS episode. Fuck knows what. I'm going to take a wild guess. I'm going to say 14. Um, Today's topic of discussion. First and foremost, we've got me, myself, Camille. Obviously, everyone knows who I am, and we've got Jack, who is a handsome bloke. Today's topic of discussion. First and foremost, we're going to talk a little bit about frequency in the gym. How often you need to be hitting specific muscle parts. The thing is, people like to worry about how often you're hitting a muscle group, and they like to overcomplicate it, as they like to overcomplicate a lot of things. I think fundamentally it comes down to a simple question of: are you able to recover session to session, and are you able to progress X, Y, and Z? Because even though there's a lot of literature suggesting, for example, hamstrings can take a lot less frequency than side delt, or hamstrings can take a lot less frequency than biceps. It is also going to be dependent on the individual itself.
Yep.
And I think that's so undervalued right now. It's like, just because the literature says you can only really train hamstrings twice a week, and you've got someone who's struggling to grow their hamstrings, they're training it twice a week and are doing it with really good intensity, and all the other variables are there and they're completely present. Maybe they are growing their hamstrings, but not as quickly as they could.
Yep.
What would be the issue of trying 3 times a week? And it's like, oh, well, the literature says you can't do that. Well, you can, because it's completely person dependent. The literature is a guideline, but it's not a one size fits all. And I think it's so important to trial things, because you never know, that client might actually respond well to it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think a lot of the research into kind of what's it called, like frequency, and this muscle can take this frequency, it again just comes down to volume, really. Like hamstrings can't take as much frequency. Yeah, sick. They're a big muscle. I'm not surprised. Whereas our side delts can. Again, smaller muscle. Cool. Like they can both. It's not as if frequency is independent of volume. Like hamstrings can take less volume than side delts, or side delts can take more volume than hamstrings. Will probably be more appropriate. Like the thing about frequency is, there's a really big myth at the minute that like beginners have to start off with full body sessions and then kind of transition into upper lower. Now, there's an advantage to that and there's a disadvantage. What do you reckon are like the advantages, mate, of something like that?
I mean, by doing like a full body split, you're teaching like the foundations of training. You're able to incorporate, bigger movements, and you're able to make sure you're building consistency, right? I think that is the most important thing as a beginner, is to build consistency. Make sure that you're going to the gym, however many days that you start on. Usually when you do like a full body split, I wouldn't go over more than 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to be simply, again, coming into the world of frequency, it's simply going to be too hard to recover from. I think personally, if I had a beginner, I would opt more towards upper lower rather than a full body split, because it gives a more sense of structure to the sessions itself. It would be kind of fucked to go from a barbell squat to a row to a press to then like some isolation movements, in my eyes, even if the intensity is not there, even if the form might not be adequate. In fact, that's even more of a concerning factor if the form is inadequate and they go from something like a barbell squat to a row and their form was fucked, and now they're a bit sore in the lower back, and then now they're rowing and their lower back's even more fucked. So I think having that sense of structure of going straight into upper and lower would make more sense in my eyes.
I think one of the biggest things is, realistically is skill. Like that's the biggest advantage to doing something that frequently, is you acquire skill quite quickly. Like you're going to be with full body, like there's only so many different movement patterns that you can do. And if you're probably going to do some form of press, multiple times per week. Maybe it's not exactly the same pressing pattern, but when you're that new to the gym, like complete beginner, learning to press in any capacity is carryover. Like, oh yeah, we've got a overhead press versus a flat press. Yeah, there's different skills. Yeah, absolutely they are, but they still have a lot of similar movements. There's still shoulder flexion happening at the same time as elbow extension against resistance. So kind of acquiring skill would be really, really beneficial there. I mean, I've run splits for people before where it literally be like full body off, full body off, full body off, or full body off, off, repeat, something like that, the same full body. Do that, rinse and repeat, then start to differentiate that full body. But when you're trying to introduce a skill, it's great. Like, it's such a good way to learn things. And even if we remove split, like, frequency in general is great. Like, if I'm teaching a newbie to deadlift, if I get them to do it 3 times a week, they're gonna fucking learn quick. You know, whereas if I say deadlift once a month, like for an advanced person, they might be like, oh, that's all I can recover from. Telling a newbie deadlift once a month, it's gonna take them a year to learn how to deadlift. It's just not gonna happen. So the key advantage there is skill, but that doesn't really kind of correlate with like beginners. And I think this is where people start to go a bit wrong. They go, oh, you know, you're wasting time if you go to a push-pull leg split or something a bit more broken down as a newbie, because that's just not the case. I like the idea that you said there of like an upper lower, even though I'd say probably most people who are newer to the gym could recover from a lot of barbell compoundy work back to back to back. I think just having, like, imagine you've got a beginner and you're like, okay, you've got full body, it's basically a fucking barbell circuit. Like, you've got deads, over row, bench, squat.
Oh.
They'd either love it or it would just push them out of the gym. And I think that's where, if you were to do full body, you do have to be careful with like what you program. Like, typically I go for upper or lower body focused. So like, you're not going to be doing a press and a squat. I'd probably have you do a press then a leg extension, or a squat then a fly, something like that. It's a bit more manageable. But this whole idea of like newbies have to do full body just doesn't make sense. Because there's advantages to it, but the advantages are pretty universal. Like, if me and Camille were to do full body, we'd acquire skill quickly. Yeah, we don't need to acquire skill that quickly, but we would. But I think it's often like full body sits or upper lower sits nicer with people's plans than like if you had someone new to the gym and you were like, right, we're going to run push pull legs upper lower. They'd be like, shit, well, I've got to be in the gym five times to get everything in. You'd be like, yeah. Whereas if you say you got 2 full body, and they'll be like, okay, well, I could just get in 1 session a week and I've still hit everything. And it's like, yeah, cool, you got that flexibility. Although I guess with push pull legs upper lower, you could do it from 2, but still, there's still a greater barrier to entry there.
I think for me, when we have someone who's like a beginner athlete and they want to get into the gym, one of the most important factors for them to develop is for them to actually fucking enjoy training.
Oh yeah.
And I can't see myself, if I was a beginner, if some cunt told me to train legs every single time I stepped into the gym, that I would enjoy going to the gym personally. So that's why I would suggest, you know, having that upper lower. So you have, you know, me personally, when I train upper, I'm happy. I'm like la 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 in my car, listening to good music. Like, it's just an enjoyable experience. When I train legs, I'm in the mud. I'm listening to like fucking, I don't know, like really Ed Sheeran or like some fucking depressing music, like head down, headphones up, hoodie up. Do you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't necessarily mean I don't enjoy training legs, but it's a different type of approach than to upper or to push or to pull, etc. And when like, I want that beginner to enjoy going to the gym, to enjoy training fundamentally. They need to have those pushes, those biblical pushes where you're like, oh my God, it's fucking International Chest Day and I'm getting a chest pump and I'm happy, and side delts and triceps, or like just getting a lat pump and not having to train legs, like being able to train lats or your back first before doing like a big compound movement, like a leg press or a squat or a fucking RDL. Like, to me, the concept of training anything else after legs is terrifying. That scares me. Yeah. And I can't even imagine, you know, some beginner getting into the gym. They don't know what they're fucking getting into. And I give them a fucking 3 sets of barbell squats, 2 sets of hinges, and then get them to start rowing. By the time they get to the row, they'll be like, I'm fucking ready to go home, mate.
Yep.
So I think that, like, for me, like as a coach, like developing that fucking love for training is more important than anything. Because again, it just goes back to the point of longevity. Like, you need to be doing this shit for an extended amount of time in order to see good results. How do you do this for an extended amount of time? You need to enjoy it. Fundamentally, you need to look forward to going to the gym, you know? And I feel with legs specifically, sorry, I'll let you carry on after this.
No,
but like with legs specifically, like, unless you're a sick cunt, you don't enjoy training legs. The satisfaction that you get from training legs is having big legs. And that won't come for a while until you're able to train legs like a mad cunt for a consistent amount of time. So you get a lot more of a delayed gratification from legs compared to your upper. Like you will get, if you get a chest bump, you will be happy. Like it's impossible to have a good chest bump and not be happy. I don't agree with it personally.
Yeah.
Or like getting a lat pump. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Agreed, man. Yeah. I think again, like frequency is the best way I can summarize frequency for anyone is like it's a tool. It's a tool for convenience, kind of like meal frequency, right? Like you kind of say, oh, what's best, 4, 5, or 6 meals? It's like, well, what's convenient for you, man? Like here's your calories, here's your macros, get them in a way that like you can sustain. And that's kind of like what frequency is. I remember like I went through a time of like I was really trying to bring up my upper. And I needed quite a lot of volume. I escalated to the point I was running upper lower push pull legs. I was getting to the point where like my upper sessions were so long. My upper push and pull was so tedious because they were so fucking long. So instead, I opted for 3 upper, 2 lower. I just kept the volume the same, but because that frequency was greater, it was much more manageable. I could do like, man, I'm not even kidding. I would do like 2 exercises for chest and back and probably do like 5 sets on them. I did it 3 times a week. Like I absolutely hammered myself with volume and I was fucking progressing. It was insane. And people would be like, oh yeah, you know, you're doing 3 upper because like it's better. And I'd be like, it's not better. Like I could get in the same amount of volume, but I just don't want to. Like it's just horrible. I can't imagine trying to get in that level of volume on 2 days. Like it was awful. Like if I've got 30 sets of chest to get in and I'm doing it on 2 days, that's 15 fucking sets. Horrid. On 3, it's only 10. 10's still a lot, but it's 5 whole sets less. And like that's huge. Like that's absolutely like that's categorically huge in terms of difference. So frequency is just kind of one of those things that like it's just a tool. Like as long as volume is equated, you're absolutely fine. Now when you're a beginner, everyone's like, oh yeah, you can recover from more. And I'm like, yeah, but people forget, like if you do like let's say 10 sets a week and you do it once per week, that 10 sets is going to take a while to recover from. Whereas if you do 5 sets, it's quicker to recover from, but you also hit it more frequently. Again, it swings and roundabouts. It doesn't really matter. It's the same as like meal frequency, right? If you eat bigger meals, you will stay more full. But if you eat bigger meals, they're going to be further apart. If you eat smaller meals, you're not going to be as full, but they'll also come quicker. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think at the end of the day, it's the same thing, and people just love to overcomplicate everything that doesn't needs to be overcomplicated. I've got a client at the moment who I would say is relatively new to the gym. He's signed up with me, and that's when he started going to the gym. We're about 4 or 5 months in, and it's got to a point now where we did sort of like a mini cut phase where we dropped a couple of kilos. We got him accustomed to training, dieting, etc. Nothing crazy, but just like, you know, a couple kilos shifted, and then we put him into a gaining phase. And, you know, I told him, because he's struggling a little bit with food, with meal prep, you know, he's got all this stuff going on with work, he's really stressed, etc. I was like, focus on the fundamentals, just train really fucking hard, be consistent in the gym, and eat protein. Like, don't, within the first 24 months, arguably, but definitely for the first 12 months of training, if something works, don't change it. You don't need much more in that initial 12 to 24 month period other than those 3 things. Like that's literally all it takes, because you have the beginner gains. You have that ability to create stimulus literally out of just looking at the fucking barbell.
Yep.
So use it. You know, you like being like consistent in the gym, worrying about the other variables, which are a bit more intermediate to advanced, that comes later down the line. Don't forget at what phase you are in terms of training. You know, the reason we talk about frequency and the reason we talk about intensity, volume, and like just programming in general, nutrition, everything, because the other main factors have stopped working, and it's our job as coaches to analyze what's gone wrong, what can we optimize, what can we make better in order to get the ball rolling again. But if the ball's fucking rolling, the ball's rolling. There's nothing more like that you need to worry about. Like, and that's how I explained it to him. And I was like, look, like just train hard, be consistent, eat protein. And Lord and behold, he's gained a kilo a week now. And it's like, How's that happen? Well, because it's fucking simple. You don't need to overcomplicate it at that stage in your lifting career. You don't. And in fact, overcomplicating it is what creates these broccoli heads that are doing fucking Mike Israel lying on their back, fucking dumbbell cows, fucking like 3 months into the gym. It's like, you don't, why are you doing that?
Yep.
Because you saw your favorite influencer doing it. Like, but that doesn't mean that it applies to you or that you need to do it. Like, just focus on the fundamentals. Like, what you like, to me it seems so crazy because the fundamentals have been around for so long. Like, get into the gym, like just train hard and you know, be relatively safe. And it's like people just tend to overcomplicate it for no reason. And I don't know how, like, where they getting this like misinformation from. But like when I started going to the gym, like, I was still, albeit it wasn't fucking perfect, but I grew a lot. I grew a lot just because the intensity was there and I was eating my protein. I didn't fucking know about, oh, like I could train my hamstring. I could only train my hamstrings twice a week, but my side delts can take more of a beating. So I'll probably train them 4 or 5 times a week. Fuck that. I was just training whenever I wanted to train hard and ate food, and fucking I grew from that. It's only when, you know, I started working with you like 2, 3 years down the line, because I stopped growing from what I was doing before. That's when we talked about, okay, like we can train this more often because it's a leg and body part. Maybe we need to increase your carbohydrate intake on training days. That's when you start to optimize, when the ball stops rolling. But if the ball is rolling, fuck it, let it roll.
Yeah, man, 100%. Like, having a tool of that, I think, again, it's people, fucking, I repeat myself every single podcast, it's people like applying something that's over engineered because they perceive it as being more advantageous, even though realistically, like, it's not doing the job that they think it's doing, or they don't really understand the job that it's doing and why it might be beneficial or not beneficial. Like you said, literally just like pick a muscle, expose it to stress, track it, progress it, you're fine. Like, as long as you do that, and with nutrition, everyone knows what healthy food is. Stick to that 80% of the time. Eat your protein, eat enough food to very gradually gain weight. What does very gradual mean? As much as you're comfortable with. If you're too fat, start gradually losing weight. How much? As much as you're comfortable with. Sweet. Like, that's the kind of the key thing. And again, it's like, if you're newer to the gym, obsessing about like recovery times and frequency and things like that, it's like, again, it comes down to like how people view newbie gains. Like, people often view newbie gains as like time based, so that, oh, I wasted my first year in the gym. It's like, it's not really how newbie gains works. It's the first 10 pounds of muscle was the easiest, the next 10 pounds slightly harder, the next 10 pounds slightly harder, etc., etc. So if you, and often the time, like we see this with our clients, if you take someone who's like got to amateur level and their progress starts to slow down, you coach them, bang, suddenly they're feeling like they're making newbie gains again. And it's because you've taken them to a new level where that's needed. And again, you get to a point where like there are certain things that you do need to do. You develop injuries, you have movement dysfunctions, you go, hey, I've been training for 2 years and I still don't have a chest, like everything else. What the fuck is going on? And it's like, okay, maybe let's look into that. Or you go, maybe you just fucking hate training, or you just can't recover anymore, or whatever it is, right? These things, they happen, or you got digestive upset, whatever. But yeah, I think this whole thing about like, the truth is, it is kind of like quite simple. It's like, frequency really doesn't matter because it's just a tool. As long as the sets are high quality and you're doing the same amount, you're fine. Often people like to opt for frequency because it makes sets higher quality, because you tend to do less on one day. But that's not always true, and that's not always the case. Some people find that as they get into a session and do more and more, their set quality increases. But the TLDR, basically, for anyone who's newer to the gym or programming newer clients, don't feel like you have to do that. Like, when we teach people programming 101, we go through splits and we go, okay, give someone a 3-day split. They always say 3 full body or upper lower full body. It's like, yeah, you can do that. You can also do push pull legs. You can also do a custom split. Like, there are kind of almost infinite splits of what you could do. Like, if you've got someone who really wants to bring up their biceps, you could do like push and biceps, pull, leg and biceps. Like, if their fucking biceps can take that, cool. Again, that's still a perfectly adequate beginner split. There's no reason that isn't. Like, if they find that, oh, you know, we're training biceps hella frequently. We don't know what their response to training is. Okay, worst case scenario, their biceps get ahead of everything else. And hey, you wanted big biceps anyway, so that's not really a concern. But I think people pigeonhole themselves into these ideas, and people talk about frequency as a benefit, and they go, oh, it's so good for growth. And it's like, huge asterisk there. It just says that people don't understand what frequency is. And it's kind of it's funny because it's like you start out being like, oh, I have to do this and I have to do this. And the more that you learn about why it's advantageous, you're like, well, actually, I kind of don't need to. Like, actually, I kind of don't need to. Actually, I kind of don't need to. Like, you could run a bro split perfectly fine. I could go and do a bro split tomorrow. It'd be really fucking hard to keep that volume quality there. But like, if I really put my mind to it, I could, and I'll make the same level of progress. I could also do full body every other day, which is a current trending split. I'd probably fucking hate it, but I could also do that. Like, there are options. And again, like, people love to obsess over one thing because a study found that thing is that thing. But again, it's like, you have to look at studies through the eye of mechanism as well and go, okay, this study found frequency is great for growth. Mechanistically, why would that be? Well, we don't really know biologically, but psychologically we know why. Because if I tell you to do 2 sets, you're probably going to send them pretty hard. So if you do 2 sets every day, probably get pretty good at it. Whereas if you do 14 sets on one day and then take a week off, probably not going to be as good. That's cool. But for some people, that's not the case. So again, it still comes down to the person.
100% agreed. And like, on the topic of like beginner lifters, I think one of my biggest pet peeves is like when someone's a couple months into the gym and they're like, oh, I got X, Y, and Z lagging body part, I really need to bring it up. And it's like, you haven't even been in the gym long enough to know if you have a lagging body part. I made this mistake myself, now I think about it. And I'm talking about how it's a pet peeve, which is really fucking funny. But yeah, I used to have the smallest fucking chest when I started going to the gym, and I used to just spam chest like flies, fucking press ups, presses, everything I could get my hands on. And I was like, nah, I'm always gonna have a shit chest. I'm genetically predisposed. I'm never gonna be a bodybuilder because I've got a tiny chest. I need to do a chest focus my entire life, all this shit. And suddenly I'm like 2 years into the gym, I'm like, wow, what the fuck? Like, my chest is probably my best body part. And it's like, you simply haven't had the time enough in a growing phase to be able to, one, address any form or intensity issues that have led to having an underdeveloped body part, or two, simply had the time in order to develop that body part. Yep. Every single muscle has the ability to grow. You're not an outlier. It's not like your fucking body part isn't going to grow. The question is, how quickly is it going to grow? And we can manipulate certain variables, like, for example, biasing the chest and pressing movements, which you might not be doing before, which is the reason why your chest isn't growing. But because you haven't addressed that, you're now like, oh, no, like, I'm genetically predisposed to have a small chest. Well, you're not. You're just not training chest. And it's like understanding, like, you don't do like fucking specific focuses on any body part within, I'd even argue, your first 2 years of lifting.
Yeah.
You don't need to. You don't have imbalances at that point. You're gonna have areas. You develop imbalances in your physique. When I say imbalances, it's like, you know, certain muscles are slightly bigger than other. You develop that through training, and some muscles will just develop at a faster rate than others. You know, maybe your front delt develops quicker than your side delt, but you're only gonna realize that after 2 years of training. And then you address that. You can't really dictate, you know, what muscles don't grow or muscles grows until you've had that time in a growing phase. So you can actually analyze it and be like, do you know what? I have trained my chest properly. You know, I've really applied the intensity and all the fucking things related to form, etc., etc. And it's actually not growing. Okay, cool. Let's actually now do a chest focus phase. See, that makes sense. But you don't need to be making these calls when you're like 2 years into the gym. Just train your fucking chest.
Yeah, exactly, mate. I think a lot of the like earliest lagging body parts don't really come from, I mean, maybe it's indirectly genetic, but it's more like movement dysfunction and intention. Like, often you look at the way that someone performs an exercise and you're like, yeah, like, or you look at someone's physique and you're like, I feel like I know exactly how they're going to perform this exercise based on how they look. And often the two go hand in hand. Like, it's very rare that I've seen someone who like does a decent amount of volume, more than like one fucking set per lift, and trains with really good intensity and intention and doesn't see that body part grow, like, and isn't progress, like if they're progressing it, like it will happen. It's just usually like, yeah, you can kind of volume your way there, but usually it comes down to intention.
Yeah, I agree. I had a little thought in the car earlier today, another pet peeve, changing the topic of discussion a little bit, but it was about like coaches who their approach to injury protocol, like if a client gets injured, is to simply tell them to take 2 weeks off. And I wanted to talk about this actually because this really fucking boils my blood. Like, if you're a coach and your client gets injured with X, Y, and Z injury, let's say they have a rotator cuff tear, a grade 1 strain, right? And they come to you and be like, oh no, my shoulder hurts. And you're like, cool, just take 2 weeks off the gym. That's not rehab or you being nice or anything. That's fucking negligence. And I'll explain exactly why. People fall into either fear confronter or fear avoided mindsets when, in terms of like training, rehab, injuries, etc. Majority of people going to the gym. This is a generalization, but majority of people going to the gym fall into the fear confronter mindset, meaning they will do. They run the risk of doing too much in order to get themselves back to full strength, right? So if someone gets an injury, albeit because you haven't done a proper assessment, you don't know how severe it is. But for the sake of it, let's say it's not very severe, and you tell them to take 2 weeks off. If you told that to me, I would like kick your head because you're taking the piss, right? You've got a shoulder injury. My approach would be like, but what can we train? What can we do? If you've got a shoulder injury, you can still fucking train legs. You could still train like other body parts. You could do calves, you could do abs, like you could do so much still. You could probably still do specific movements with the back, but it's a matter of trial and error. It's a matter of diagnosis, finding out how it happened, why it happened, and then allowing your client, for example, to still train. Because, I've said this so many times, like managing the psychology behind an injury is just as important as the actual physiology and like what's going on in the body, etc. Is it healing? Someone that goes to the gym, they don't want to be out of the fucking gym, and if you tell them to take 2 weeks out, that's going to have a significant effect on their psychology, which actually slows down their prognosis. They will get better if they keep going to the gym, because they just feel better psychologically, and that has an influence on how quickly the injury heals. So if you truly want to get them back to 100%, you wouldn't just tell them to take 2 weeks off. You do a fucking assessment. You'd be like, why does this happen? And how do we prevent it from happening in the future? And what do we implement now in order to, one, reduce your pain, increase range of motion, and increase your prognosis so we can get you back to 100%? So fucking giant. Please, 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 if you fall into this category, get in contact with a professional like myself who actually knows their shit, because you cannot be doing this to people. Like, I can't think of anything more infuriating than someone telling me to take time off the gym. I need to know if I'm genuinely taking time off the gym, regardless if it's all sessions or like specific sessions, like just upper or just push. I need to know it's for a valid reason, and I need to know that 100%. If you got a minor injury, it's not that deep. Like, literally, like, Jack, how would you feel? Because you're running with some bicep tendonitis at the moment. Imagine you told your coach, you're like, oh, like, my tendon's a little bit inflamed, it's a bit agitated after my last pull session. And he's like, yeah, Mint, take 2 weeks off. Thumbs up.
You wouldn't fucking tell him.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't even tell him. And it's like,
I remember when I like messed my knees up for the first time, like I would run some pretty weird splits. Like I would do, my leg days kind of became more like hamstring days. So I do like, I'd basically replace the volume of my quads with like hams and adductors, because like, okay, great excuse to bring those up. Particularly adductors, like super underrated, big part of your leg. If you get very big adductors, very hard to say you have small legs. So I was kind of like, okay, like hamstrings, cool. Having big hamstrings is always cool, but they're not going to be like, they're kind of more of like a leg width thing, right? Or posterior of your leg. Whereas like if I'm walking around in joggers, if I got big fucking adductors, it shows. So I was like, right, I'll focus on that, focus on calves, focus on abs, do a little bit of mobility. Like I trained my tibs, I would train my hip flexors, just again to kind of take up some time. And And then, you know, I had some quad rehab, and I would do that at the end of like a push or a pull day. So I pretty much run like, I think it was like push, pull, hams, rest. And I think it became like chest, back, hams, and arms, because I discovered that I couldn't do that long of a session with just hamstrings. So I started to put my arms on there, start off with arms. Cool. Like you can get very creative. Like, I mean, currently with the bicep tendonitis, I do a lot of much more mid to short focused bicep exercises, minimal volume, intensity just auto regulated. Like if I can progress, if I can train to like full tilt, sweet. If that's a little bit beyond the mild discomfort and that's a little bit too flary, fine, it's chill. I do a lot of cuffed side delt or back work to kind of avoid gripping stuff. Do a lot of neutral grip pressing. Like, I mean, I did a whole fucking session today, peak strength, hit some big numbers, like good level of comfort on everything. Like, yeah, absolutely fine. My forearms and my biceps chilling here right now. Like, that's the thing is often you need, there's a mixture of things. Like, I think people are scared to work around, and I think people are also scared to rehab, where like, you know, the way that I would approach things is I would be like, okay, like I'll keep my pullovers and my like cuffed at the wrist stuff in. I'll do my rehab, keep on cracking on. I'll leave my cuff stuff in because currently it's working around the injury, so that's fine. I'll keep on loading that up. Then when I go back to swap it, I'll just swap it for whatever it was that I initially swapped out. And yeah, I'm like, that combination of rehab plus work around over time gives you a very compelling training plan. Like, I haven't run into knee issues or shoulder issues in a very long time. Why? Because some of the lifts that I first put in to work around those issues are still in there now, you know? And like, I've been able to work in a few things I couldn't before, like flies in particular were just not happening, and now they are. But for the most part, I'm keeping it like, you know, somewhat similar, because I'm still picking lifts that supply stimulus that I can progress. And like, you can't really notice in my physique what's injured. I mean, my biceps are shit anyway, so they were shit before the tendonitis. But other than that, like, you can't really fucking tell. And yeah, I think that's the thing, is like, you need to have a bit of a, okay, this contradicts hypertrophy. So can I make something that like makes up for this? Even putting something on like maintenance volume, or like the way that I would approach it is like, if I can't do any bicep work and it's just bicep rehab, okay, cool. We'll start off the session with biceps, do bicep rehab, pick some back stuff that kind of I can get away with after that, and crack on, and just treat the bicep rehab as if I'm training biceps and then do the rest of my session. But like, I'll often, for people who are injured, give completely custom splits. You know, like if you've got knee issues, I might do full body push, full body pull, and in the end is literally just like rehab stuff. Or you know, you might be doing some kind of training, but it's boring, like box squats. Oh my god, I box squatted for months. I fucking hated it. Like, I would just walk into the gym, just get that done with, and be like, right, let's crack on with the rest of my leg day. But just small little things like that, where they allow the training split to be much more manageable, and you feel like you've got a training split, rather than just being like, oh, I can't train legs, so now I can only go to the gym 3 days a week or 2 days a week or whatever. Like, play around with what you're doing, and then it gives you a bit more, it's a nicer, like, mentally, because you're like, I've got my split, and almost shift your focus. Like, okay, cool, I've got bicep tendonitis. Well, my delts are kind of crap, so let's pour some more volume into them while the biceps are out. Cool, sweet. Bicep volume went down, side delt volume went up. Sweet, cool, we chat. And we'll do that in a way that is sensible and not cause any shoulder issues. But you know, but yeah, the key thing there, like, really is like maintaining someone's psychology, even if it's yourself.
I'm a big fan of actually making a custom split, because, like you said, having a sense of like you're still on a split. And what you said as well is fucking nail on the head. Is like, people are scared to rehab, and people like automatically, it's either people only fall in two categories, at least the ones I've spoken to. They're either really ridiculously fucking confident that they could rehab every injury, and you know, they'd be able to sort out every single client's fucking problems regarding their body, or they've completely shy away from it, and they're like, yeah, it's not, I'm a coach, I'm not a fucking rehab specialist. If my client gets fucking injured, I'll just send them to a physio. Yeah, cool, but who's paying for that? What, they're paying for that? Yeah, cool. Fucking paying 60 quid a session for fucking a muscle strain that gets sorted within 2 weeks. Yeah, mint. No, your fucking client's broke and he's gonna fucking leave you because he can't afford you. And it's like, you know, this is why having an understanding of rehab is so underlooked, but actually so fucking important. And You know, people are always going to get injured, regardless of where they are in terms of their career. Newbie to the gym, you know, that's a risk factor in itself because they don't have good form. You know, 2-3 years into the gym, okay, now we're really pushing load. We're going into territory that we haven't been before. Again, fucking risk factor. Starting to compete if they're on PDs, massive fucking risk factor of getting injured. Now you're progressing at an even faster rate than when you were progressing, and the load's already fucking high, and it's just getting even higher. Recipe for fucking injury. The more you get into gym, the more injury prone you become, the more injury cautious you have to be. So it becomes even so more fucking important. Me and Jack literally program our splits in a way to keep us not getting injured. As soon as I decided to do a power building split, within 2 fucking months, I pulled my back. Not even, probably like 6 weeks. I fucking pulled my back. And I'm still struggling with SIJ irritation to this point. It's been like fucking 4 or 5 weeks now. It's like, if you get injured, that is the single most or worst thing you could do for your training or bodybuilding or powerlifting career. Like, it is the single most. Why do you think powerlifters get injured on a regular? Why do you think like powerlifters? It's like a fucking internet meme that powerlifters are always injured because the fucking pushing load all the fucking time. And that's why smart powerlifting programs don't train to failure every single week. You might do fucking, 70%, ramp up to 80, 90, and then do comp when you're back to 100%. There's a reason for that, not just from a strength standpoint and you're building up to that neurological adaptation, but also from a fucking safety standpoint. If you were fucking going to the gym every single week and you were squatting your max 3x3 every single week, 1, you wouldn't progress, but 2, you would get injured. That's what happened to me. That's exactly what happened to me. I was going to the gym every single week and doing more than what I was doing like last week. So I was technically applying bodybuilding principles to fucking powerlifting movements. And I got rotted. I literally got fucking snapped in half. Like, like injury prevention should always be a forefront. I feel like we always just fucking repeat ourselves on this podcast. We say the same shit, which is boring cunts. But injury prevention should always be a fucking forefront because it's fucking inevitable. Like, if you're on the academy, on the website specifically, like literally in the first rehab lecture, I was like, big man, you are not made of vibranium. You, the guy behind the screen, me, fucking Jack, Uncle Jack, we're all not made of vibranium. We can all get fucking, hurt, injured, ill, everything. Yeah, so get that out of your head that, oh yeah, just because I'm not injury prone, it's not going to happen to me. Because when it does, you're going to start crying, running to me like, oh, come on, I didn't think it was going to happen to me. Now you've got a fucking grade 3 ACL sprain and you're out for 1 to 2 years. Do you see what I mean? Like, the best way to manage an injury is to not fucking get it in the first place. I cannot stress that enough. You need to implement like injury prevention protocols in your training to prevent you from getting fucking injured. Another important factor is like, if you're competing, God forbid you get injured like weeks before your show, you're fucked. Like, you're fucked. Psychologically, physiologically, if it's like an actual tear, that's going to change the appearance of the muscle. But psychologically, you're going to be fucking panicking. You're in the middle of prep, in the fucking hole. Like, it's literally one of the most horrible experiences I can imagine happen to a fucking human being, is getting injured like a couple of weeks before your show. You've been putting all this time and effort into getting the best physique possible, years, sometimes even decades in an off season. You now go through a prep where you're starving your body. Your body thinks it's about to die in order to get striated glutes, and then you get injured. Men, yeah, fucking, it's all gone to fucking waste. Do you know what? So like, that's my point. The main takeaway is just please, like, keep injury prevention and injury management as a forefront, rather so before it becomes a problem.
Yep. You're not made of vibranium, literally, as you said, mate. Like, there's no one on earth who goes through their entire career getting uninjured. And people forget that, like, injuries can be, what's the word I'm looking for? They can be very much not chronic, but there can be lasting ramifications for them. Like you said, like changing the muscle belly and the way that it looks. I mean, today I was watching a video by Big Loz. Shout out Big Loz. He's a strongman, UK strongman, talking about like, he was talking about like his work. He ranked like his worst injuries, like top 10. And he talked about a shoulder. Yeah, bro. Because strongmen get fucking injured all the time. He was like, literally, like the way that he talked about it. Okay, to be fair, anyone who doesn't believe me about injury, go and watch that video, or doesn't believe Camille about injury, go and watch that video, because he was like, yeah, fuck my shoulder in a competition. My pressing has never been the same since. Like, his ability to generate stability is lifelong fucked. He's like, he's still a strong man, but he's like his strength will never be to the same degree. Tore his lat deadlifting, same thing. He was like, I've never deadlifted that heavy ever again. That's fucking bonkers, bro. Like, literally imagine you tear something and you're like, the only way is down for the rest of your life. Ridiculous. Like, absolutely fucking ridiculous. That's the biggest takeaway for me, is like, you can, and I can't remember who I was talking to about this. I think it was Richie. Shout out Richie. I was like, I do genuinely believe, right, you can do half the ROM and twice the load, right? And that will grow you probably just as much as full ROM with reasonable load. I think there's not that much difference, right? We see bodybuilders half rep all the time, even in the contraction. I think you're like, if we're talking about a press that's like fucking baby ROM, as long as there's some kind of muscle length change, even if you're using tons of load, you'll still grow. But it doesn't mean it's fine to do, because there is a huge cost to that. And that is injury risk. That is not just injury risk from carrying that much load and potentially exceeding a range of motion that your body is used to and your body has developed strength in. But if you do train with appropriate range of motion, I'm not going to use the word full, appropriate range of motion, you can increase your resistance to injuries. If you train with appropriate recovery, appropriate volume, appropriate intensity, you can increase your resistance to injuries. As I've grown my quads, I've increased my knees' ability to handle torque and forces. They're significantly stronger and better than before. I used to walk around with knee pain. Now I can fucking jump and they're fine. Like, I can put, a couple plates on the fucking pivot leg press and sissy leg press it and it's fine. Like, I can sissy leg press like 150 kilos before I can fucking walk at like 90 kilos with pain, or without pain, sorry. So that's the thing, is just because it isn't going to cost you any growth doesn't necessarily mean that it's the smart thing to do. And of course, also, like, if you're doing a press and you're just challenging the lockout, you're probably just going to get a decent amount of tricep growth, minimal delt and chest. But again, like, even if we ignore that and we say that you're still going to grow a decent chest, there's no reason to do that. Like, I see people slinging weight around and it's like, your goal is to create stimulus and you are doing that, but you're doing that in a very dangerous way. And that's my issue. When I see someone ego lifting, it's not that it's not going to grow them, it's that it's probably in the long term not going to be a good idea, because eventually that will give you an injury and eventually that will cost you training. And yeah, that's the thing. Some people are more injury prone than others. I definitely feel like I'm probably above averagely injury prone, probably due to stress, which is
glass cannon.
Mate, literally. So like, the way that I put it to clients who are injury prone is, I'm like, look, everyone can't be you can't bullshit forever. Like, you just can't bullshit your reps forever. For me and anyone else that's injury prone, we just get quicker feedback on it. Like, if you train like a muppet, you might get away with it for a few months. If I train like a muppet, I'll know in a few hours, and that's the difference. But again, it's almost a blessing, because it does keep you accountable to not being a bell end. And like I said to Will today, is like, if you continue to progress and you train with intensity, strength will come. You physically, like, if you look at the loads that you lift now compared to when you started the gym, even if you're going through a phase of not actively trying to be the strongest human on earth, you're lifting significantly more. Like, the difference between benching 2 plates and 3 plates is time and consistency. It really is that simple. Like, I genuinely believe everyone can do it. It's just time and consistency. So how do you fuck that up? Be injured for half the time. That fucks your time, that fucks your consistency. If you're not injured, you've got time and consistency. And that really is the key to, like, if I think about my biggest, like, I'm a decent presser. How have I progressed it so well? I never rushed load on it. Like, through the past, like, 3 or 4 years, I've never rushed load on pressing. Don't know why. I think it's a confidence thing. Because of that, it's become my strongest lift, because it's the thing that's the least injured. Like, I've very, very rarely run into pressing related injuries, but my rows, my hinges, my arm work, my leg work, that's where the injuries come in a little bit, and that strength is lower. Like particularly my lower body work. My lower body work should be significantly stronger than it is, but it's not because of injuries. And that's the thing, is like people underestimate the fact. I think the best thing to say is like, you will get injuries. It is that simple. So start preventing.
I agree.
And even if you prevent them, you're still going to get fucking injured. It's still going to happen. Like, to some degree, it's always an inevitability. I think people get frustrated as well because you can't see all the injuries you avoided. Like, I've got bicep tendonitis at the minute, but I can't see the fact that, oh, Jack, you pressed like a normal human being rather than like a bell end, so you actually avoided a minor pec tear on this day. It's like, there's no way for me to know that because I just didn't get the injury. But I think that's why maybe people get a little bit disillusioned, because they'll be like, oh man, I trained with good form, I still got injured. And it's like, yeah, well, imagine if you hadn't, like, you don't know what that would have been. You know, it could have been a tear, could have been a sprain, could have been a full fucking detachment. Like, you don't know what could have happened. That would be a cool statistic though, if you were like, you finish a gym session and it was like, well done, when you almost thought about adding a plate to that exercise, you actually would have tore your fucking quad off the bone. So well done for not doing that. You'd be like, damn, fucking hell, okay. But yeah.
I really like how you said appropriate ROM.
Yep.
And how much ROM you can do is dictated by said factors like, you know, injury, what you're able to tolerate, etc. I always like the analogy of like your mobility or your ROM should be dictated by your stability. If you're going to access greater ranges of motion in a specific lift, you better fucking hope that you're stable in those movements. This is more specific to people who are hypermobile.
Yep.
Which you can do an easy assessment. It's called the Beighton scale, BEIGTONS, Beighton scale. Fucking hell, dyslexia's coming in crazy. But if you want to Google it, it's a scale of 0 to 9, and it's just assessing a bunch of joints. So it's mostly elbows, knees, your spine, and then your pinky finger and your thumb finger. And that's going to be able to tell you basically, are you hypermobile? But again, it can be dictated by joint to joint. These are only the joints assessed in the Beighton scale. Obviously, if you notice you've got extra fucking shoulder extension, then what a normal fucking human being should be. And how do you assess this? By doing range of motion assessments with your fucking clients. Again, really fucking important. But anyway, I digress. Like, if you're hypermobile, you need to be very, very fucking careful at those end ranges, because 1, tendons, 2, tears. Like, you gotta understand, you have access to range of motion that you are not stable in. You're not gonna have the same stretch reflex as someone who isn't hypermobile. What does that mean? It means like, oh yeah, in order to achieve the feeling of a big stretch in your chest, you're probably fucking the ligaments and the tendons are taking a massive fucking hit just for you to get that sensation. If you are hypermobile, don't chase the sensation of getting a really big stretch. Chase the look. Do you look like you're getting a big stretch? For example, on a press, if you're going all the way back here and you don't feel a stretch, it's still a fucking stretch regardless, because you're all the way back here. If you go all the way here and that's when you feel a stretch, that's probably going to indicate that something's about to fucking go. And it's like, you got to be really, really fucking careful when you're loading up and you're hypermobile, because it's going to feel so natural for you to get into that range of motion where you feel a stretch, but it's not. I wouldn't necessarily say it's safe, or it's not safe, sorry, but I would say you run the risk, or run an increased risk of getting injured in that range of motion. And like we said, it's all about injury prevention, right? So you need to be aware of that in your training. If you're not able to tell if your client is hypermobile or not, then you're a shit coach. That's your fucking job. If no one's picked that up, I'm talking GPs, fucking physios, whatever, then you need to pick that up. And the way you pick that up is by doing range of motion assessments. It's fucking crucial.
Yeah, man, 100%. I think ROM assessments are so overlooked. Like, I had a feedback from a client today where he's been pressing to a very, very deep ROM. That's fine. Not had any issues with it. Recently fed back of like, hey man, my shoulder hurts. Re-looked at his footage and was like, okay, that's definitely going a little bit into passive ROM there for his shoulder joint. There's a little bit of internal rotation happening as we're starting to kind of come into that. And his whole rib cage is starting to kind of almost reposition and kind of rotate as he's getting very deep into the hole. And so I was like, okay, what I want you to do next time is record yourself doing this with absolutely no weight, just your hands, and show me what you can do, and we'll mimic that. So again, this is where like having a good understanding of like I think it's easy to demonize range of motion you have access to routinely, your active ROM, or range of motion that you need load to get into, passive ROM. It's easy to kind of demonize one or the other and be like, oh, you have to go as deep as possible, lift, like get a heavy load and go deeper than you normally can. Or people go, oh, I'll never do that. And it's like, well, going beyond range of motion that you can normally access is somewhat of a risk factor. It's not necessarily true that a risk factor means we'll hit the risk, but it's good to assess that. If you're hypermobile, yeah, don't fucking do that. But if you're like someone who's young, you're being sensible, you've done it for a while, cool, go for it. You know, not all my range of motion is active, but equally, not all my ROM is passive, because there's times where I need to be sensible with my range of motion, and that's where using appropriate resistance profile, using appropriate exercise selection, appropriate exercise order or sequencing, if we want to stay fancy with the fancy lingo, and just generally programming from a smart perspective really does come into things. But the issue is people try too much to, I don't know, just make one thing universally good or bad. And like, there's nothing wrong with having clients go into passive ROM. There's nothing wrong with having clients go into active ROM. The same way that nutritionally, there are certain foods that tend to cause stomach upset. There are certain foods that don't. You don't know what that person's reaction to that's going to be. So it's pointless saying, oh, don't eat that or don't do that. You just go, okay, let me know if that becomes an issue. Hey, we're going pretty deep on that press. Let me know if you feel okay with that. If you walk into the gym and your shoulders or your elbows feel a little bit iffy, feel free to swap that out. Feel free to go a little bit shallower. If you want to go shallower, mate, feel free. Even just saying something like that, like that's fine. Or even modifying the exercise to be, okay, we're going to take a slight pause here. We're going to up the rep range. We're going to have a rep in reserve, whatever. Things like that can also be sensible. But yeah, again, it comes down to your client and their assessment. Like, if you see that, I think having an idea of what your clients can do versus what they are doing from a joint perspective is huge, and so underlooked. First thing a PT does, but like the last thing a coach does, and it's flipping embarrassing.
Yeah, 100%. And like, another interesting topic that I want to talk about, I know we're talking about rehab all the fucking time, but it is important, is like the concept of regional interdependence. I see a lot of people make the mistake of, okay, I got a shoulder mobility issue, so I'm just going to do mobility for the shoulder. Like, cool, yeah, we can get your shoulder moving better, but you also got to understand that other structures that could be limiting your shoulder range of motion. One of them being your neck, the other one being your ribs, the third one being your thoracic spine, you know, your elbow and your wrist. Have you even considered that? Like, focusing on one area just because you feel the symptoms there is not necessarily the right course of action. You got to look a bit more globally. So that would be my bit of advice, would be, you know, have a look at the surrounding structures, think globally, think holistically. You know, that's what I always do. I rarely, if I think someone's, for example, got a shoulder issue, will actually look at the shoulder, because my immediate intuition is telling me like, oh, it's probably going to be like first rib, it's going to be in the C-spine, you know, it's going to be that left scap, it's going to be the scapula that's restricted, you know, that's my natural intuition. So definitely, like, you know, look more globally and think about the bigger picture. Think about it biomechanically, because a lot of coaches do have a background in biomechanics, but they can't even fucking envision a skeleton moving. You know, like, fucking literally imagine the bones on the fucking skeleton moving it. Think about how everything's moving in sequence. It's not one, you know, muscles move bones, but there's a lot of muscles moving the bone at once. There's 18 muscles that attach onto the scapula, and they all influence shoulder movement, you know, stuff like that. I remember whipping that out at a fucking quiz, an osteo quiz, like, oh, there's 18 muscles that attach onto the scapula. Well, I was proper neat. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think the if we summarize the key takeaways, so summarize for us why coaches shouldn't just tell clients to have time off whenever they have an injury.
Because it's a lot more complicated than that. Don't shy away from looking after your clients. Don't neglect them, because that's what I would say that is. You're neglecting your clients. Have the actual knowledge to keep them in the gym for as long as possible and work around it, rather than work away from it, or don't work on it at all. Yeah, basically.
And then to summarize the frequency point, if you've got a new client or you are newer to the gym, don't feel that you have to do higher frequency. Higher frequency is just a tool for convenience. It really comes down to training hard and how often you do that, in terms of how many times per week, how many sets. You can do that all in one go or spread it out. A lot of people benefit from spreading it out. doesn't mean you will. If you hate that idea, don't do it. And that is today's fucking episode. God damn it. Was there anything else that you wanted to run through or chat about before we wrap things up? Any final advice?
Nah, I think that's it, to be honest. Good to go.
If anyone listening has any ideas that they want to cover, let us know. And as always, that's Camille_Archer Academy on Instagram. I'm Jack_Archer Academy. Give the YouTube a subscribe, Spotify a follow, all that good stuff, whatever the fuck the phrase is. If you want some clothing, BuiltNotBorn.Store. It's currently out of stock. Soz, too popular. And if you are someone hoping to improve as a coach or know a little bit more about your client base and generally get a bit smarter, drop either one of us a message. If you're after coaching, we also do that as well. Drop us a message. And yeah, mate, thanks everyone for watching, listening, whatever the fuck. Have a good day, y'all. Bye.